మళ్ళీ undefined వస్తుందా?
అవును సార్.
రిఫ్రెష్ చేయండి. మీ చేంజెస్ సేవ్ అయినా లేదు చూడండి ఫస్ట్. వాట్ ఆర్ ద చేంజెస్ యూ సేవ్డ్?
అయింది సార్,
Script
సేవ్
లో.
అయింది సార్.
Script లో. ఎక్కడైంది? 12th లైన్లో అవ్వలేదు ఇంకా.
అండర్స్కోర్ మిస్ అయింది.
సో అండర్స్కోర్ పెట్టి ట్రై చేయండి. విల్ కంటిన్యూ ది క్లాస్. You can
Okay.
try it offline. In case still you see issues, we can discuss. Right. So hello everybody. So let's continue. You can stop sharing. Right. Able to see my screen, everybody? So now let's start configuration of the workflow. So now let's take some use case. So after the request is raised from the catalog item, send the RITM to the approval of the send the RITM to the approval for the manager of the reported user. I can say L1 approval. Okay. If manager is not present, then send it for the approval to the any of the members, say Abel tutor. Okay. So if L1 approval is approved, then if L1 approval is approved, then send the RITM for L2 approval to the groups, okay, selected on the variable. So I think we have a variable. So we'll be using some scripting as well here in this particular workflow. So try to understand. So I'll try to explain it in detail. So this is a variable. So we cannot just configure a workflow without writing at least few of the lines of scripts. Okay. We can still do, but that will be very simple workflow. So now once L1 approval is approved, then send the RITM for L2 approval to the groups selected on the variable, right? Once L2 approval is approved, then mark the RITM as approved. Okay. If L1 or L2 approval is rejected, then close the RITM and close the request. Mark the RATM as rejected and close the RATM and then close the request. So once L1 and L2 approvals are approved, then create task 1, catalog task 1, to the group A1 engineering team. After task 1 is closed, then create task 2 to the group called cap approval. You can take any group, okay? I'm taking some dummy groups. After task 2 is completed, then verify if OS type is selected with any value. If yes, then create task 3 and task 4 to the groups application development. You can take any groups, okay? And analyst group. Right. Next. After task 3 and 4 are completed or closed, then close the RATM and then close the request. So we'll build the workflow, okay, for this use case. So first what we are doing is we are triggering L1 approval. Okay, we are triggering approval to the manager of the reported user. That is L1 approval. If manager is not present, then send the approval to this able tutor, one of the user. If L1 approval is approved, then trigger L2 approval. Okay, so to the groups, which all groups? So groups which are selected on this variable. Okay, all these groups should be triggering the approval. Next. So once L1 and L2 approval is approved, then mark the RATM as approved. Okay. Then in case if L1 or L2 is rejected, any of the approval is rejected, then mark the RATM as rejected and close the request and RATM. So if both are approved, for example, then create task 1 to this team, catalog task to this team. After task 1 is closed, then create another task to cab approval. If task 2 is closed or completed, then verify if the variable here, right? If the variable here is OS type selected with some value or not, right? So if there is a value selected, then create task 3 and task 4. So this is the one. If OS type is not selected with any value, then if OS type is not selected with any value, then close the item and close the request. Getting it? So this is what. So this is the 7th point, 8th point. Next is 9th point. So we'll build the workflow for this use case. Is it clear? So go to the workflow editor, type workflow editor. So under workflow editor, click on this. Right? So this is a home screen for the workflow. Click on new workflow. Right? So now we are creating a new workflow. Give some name for this workflow. So I'm giving name like this, workflow for the item. Which item? So our item is this one. Copy this one. Now table. So select the table as requested item table. Requested item. What is the table name for the requested item?
AI engineer.
Which one?
A1 engineering team.
No, I'm asking the table name for the requested item. What is the table name for the request?
sys_user_group. For table,
Table name for the request, not table name for the group. I'm not asking table name for the group or user. I'm asking table name for the request. Anybody?
Yeah, test item 9 I think so. Name 2.0 something.
I'm not asking the name of the catalog item. I'm asking the table name of request. Every table will have two names, right? So I'm asking those two names for the request table. I want the system name of the table.
You can copy in the URL.
I know that. I'm asking you whether you know or not. Anybody?
sys_user_table.
No. Are you people practicing daily? Alvelu, Mahesh, Sai Deepika, Sri Kavita, Sumati. Please give me the table name for the requested item. Already gave, right? So this one. So for request, it is SC_request, right? Requested item SC_REQ_item. right? So for catalog task, please practice. Okay, concepts will become complex in the coming days. So practice day by day. All these things will be referring again. That time you should not give me a blank answer. Okay, so these are the table names. You should remember them. Anytime somebody is asking you, you should be able to answer them, right? So now we are configuring workflow on this requested item table. So select this table, sc underscore req underscore item. Okay, select the requested item table, submit. So workflow is created and you can see two activities, begin and end, and you can drag, drop anywhere. Okay, drag and droppable objects. So now between start and end, we have to place our activities as per the use case. So select this transition line, click on delete. Okay. So now, what is the first point here? After the request is raised for the catalog item, send the RITM to the L1 approval, right? So now, so I want to add approval activity here, approval to the manager. So I can use approval activities here. So I can use approval user. Approval user is activity which is used to trigger approval to the user. So I can use that here. Okay, can use that here. So now observe carefully here. So I can say name as L1 approval. So name this activity as L1 approval to the manager. Next, here you can define the conditions. Under what conditions you want to trigger the approval to the user. You can also add conditions here, and here you can add users manually. So this is a list field. Here you can add users manually. So for example, if I'm adding this user will be triggered with the L1 approval. I can also select groups here. I have groups field. So I can see it is a reference to the group table. I can select groups here. That means approval can be triggered, sent to this user and to this group using this activity. But our use case is L1 approval to be triggered to the manager of the reported user, right? So we do not want to use these users for approval trigger. So remove them. So on our item, for this user, who is the manager? That manager should be triggered with the approval, L1 approval. So it should be picked up dynamically based on the value selected here, right? So it should be triggering approval dynamically based on the user selected here. So now we'll have to configure some script here. Click on this, right? So now click on advanced. So you can see a script window here opening. So very simple here. So they already gave a script here. You can use similar script here. So answer equal to open and close is an array variable. This is an array variable. And then whichever the user should be triggered with an approval, sysID of that user should be passed here. The ID1. So instead of ID1, you should pass sysID of the user. Answer.push, sysID of the user should be passed here. Same syntax you can use. So here, if you want to send approval to a single user, use this first line. If you want to send approval to multiple users, say 2 users, then you have to use 2 syntaxes like this. If you want to send approval to the 3 users, then same syntax you can repeat answer dot push id3, third user's id. You can say id3, but id1, id2, id3 should be passed with the sysids of the user. Now we'll build our logic here. So first, go to our item. So first, check whether this user, reported user, has a manager or not. Okay, verify if user has a manager or not. If yes, pick the user from the manager. So verify here. So now observe carefully. So in order to read the variable value in the workflow, you have to use something called current. Okay, current dot variable. Okay, variables. Current dot variables dot current dot variable dot. What is a variable that we are trying to read? Reported user, right? So verify. What is the backend name of this variable? So reported user, right? Reported user. So now using this syntax, you will get the value present on this particular reported user variable. Now, if you want to get the manager, you have to dot walk again. Dot walk to this reference record and then read this manager. So put dot. If you want to read the manager value here, you have to read the field name. You read with the field name. So you can see manager here on the user record. So copy the backend field name. Getting it. So this is how. Use current dot variables, not variable. Okay. So now you'll get the manager value present on the manager field for the reported user. Assign it a variable. This variable is different and catalog item variables is different. Okay. So this is a variable that we use it in the JavaScript syntax. Say vmgr. Okay. So now vmgr will have the value read from the manager field from the user table. Now, so you see here, this will give the sysid. This is a reference field on the user table. This is a reference field. Reference field always gives the sysid of the reference record. So now this syntax will give me the sysid of the manager of the reported user selected. Getting it? So this will give the sysid of the manager. Current dot variables is used to read the value present on the variable. So we are passing variable name and then dot walking to read the manager field value for the selected record. Now, so now check whether manager is empty or not. If manager is not present, then send it for the ABEL tutor. Now, so I'm checking. Check if the manager is empty. Okay. If yes, then send the L1 approval to the manager. If no, there is no manager, then send L1 approval to Abel tutor. Okay. So now, whatever the value that we get here, right, that will give the SysID. So now, if manager, so whatever the SysID that you get, right? So if manager is present, you will get the SysID. Otherwise, you will get empty value. If P manager equal to empty. Okay. If it is empty, that means there is no manager. Then send the approval to the manager, not manager, Abel tutor. So write the syntax again here. So this is all commented. Okay. This will not execute. Only our syntax will execute. Our syntax will execute. Now copy this syntax as well. Copy answer dot push. So here you need to push the SysID of the Abel tutor. SysID of the Abel tutor. So this is Abel tutor, right? Copy the SysID. Then use it here, right? So if the manager is empty, then send the approval to the Abel tutor. I'm going very slow. Please try to understand. So next. So if manager is present, then send the approval to the manager itself. Send the approval to the manager. So use the same syntax. So copy the V manager. So this is what. So this is a syntax that you can use to trigger the approval to the manager. If manager is not present, Abel tutor will be triggered with the approval. Submit. Okay. Is this clear, guys? There will be some difficulty in the initial time, so you have to understand it. Go through the recording again and again, and you will understand it clearly. So now approval user activity is created. Now what you can do, you can join this begin with the L1 approval activity. Getting it? Now for time being, we'll do one thing. So this is a workflow created, right? So we'll try to add this workflow to the catalog item. So we still have to add more activities, but right now I'll add this workflow to the catalog item. Copy. So go to our item. You see here workflow, add it here. Click on this reference lookup. Search for the workflow. So this is our workflow, right? Select it. So add it, saved. Right? Now click on try it. So now let's select some other user. We'll select a user who has manager. Say system. Right? So this user. We'll see whether approval triggers properly or not. Save it. I'm not filling any other details. Go to the request. Go to the RITM. See here, state says, the approval says requested. And on the RITM, you can see approvers related list here. So it is triggering the approval to the manager. So here is the approval request triggered. So it says requested. Which user? This user. Getting it? That means this is working. Now, for example, if there is no manager, how does it behave? So let's check. Clear, guys? So if there is no manager, how does it behave? Let's verify. So this user doesn't have any manager. It is empty here. Now, order now. Go to RITM. See here, it is triggering approval to the Abel tutor because there is no manager here, right? For Sharath Kumar. So that's the reason L1 approval is triggered to the Abel tutor. Able to follow? Come on, respond.
Dilip, can you explain about why Abel Tutor come into the picture? I can't understand.
No, just we are trying to add some approval to the user.
Okay.
If L1 approval, like manager for the reported user is not present, then I'm triggering approval to some user. That user is nothing but Abel tutor.
You can add any user, right?
Any user you can add, no problem. So for the use case purpose, I have taken Abel tutor. You can take any user, but you have to add that user SysID in the workflow approval user activity.
Okay.
Right? Right. So now approval user is working as expected. Everybody understood the script, at least at the high level. So approval user has two outputs here, approved and rejected. So every approval can be approved or rejected. So that's the reason it has two outputs. Now, if L1 approval is approved, then we need to trigger L2 approval. Right? We need to trigger L2 approval. Where is it L2 approval? So once L1 is approved, then send the RITM to L2 approval to the groups selected on the variable. Go to our item. So whatever the groups that you select here, so to these groups, the L2 approval should be triggered. Whatever the groups that you select dynamically, right? To those groups dynamically L2 approval should be sent. So go to our workflow editor. So we are triggering approval to the groups, right? So we can use this approval group activity. Okay. Approval group activity. Now give some meaningful name here. So L2 approval to the groups. So again, if you want to make this approval to be triggered based on some condition, you can add the conditions here. So you can add the groups statically here. Okay, but our groups should be picked up dynamically from the variable and then triggering the approval. We should not trigger the approval statically, so it should be dynamic. So you have to write the script here again, advanced. So script window is open for you. Similar syntax what we have seen previously, but here the approach will be different. So first, what are you supposed to do? Read the variable, put it in the comment lines. So 2 forward slashes like this will be called as commenting the lines. Commenting means the script will not, this lines will not execute. Whatever the lines are commented, right, with the forward slash in the starting, there these lines will not be executed. Only uncommented lines will be executed. So now read the groups selected on the variable. On the variable, which variable? Select the groups. Right. Now, how do you read? Same thing, current dot variables dot. So what is the variable name? Right click, configure variable. So this is a variable name, copy this. Go to the workflow. Right. So using this syntax, you will get the value selected on this variable. So assign it to another JavaScript variable. So variable v groups. Okay. So basically, whenever you're selecting multiple values like this here, okay, whenever you're selecting multiple values like this, so you're selecting the groups here. So all the group sysids will be, all these groups are referenced onto this variable. So this is something similar to the reference variable. So it will always store the reference of the selected record here. So now 3 records we have selected. So this variable is now referencing to 3 records. So whenever you try to read this variable, you will get the sysids of these 3 groups. You will get the sysids of these 3 groups, because always a reference variable or reference field stores the sysid of the reference record. So here these 3 records are referenced to this variable. So this variable now will give me the sysids of all these 3 groups selected with comma separation. With comma separation. So observe carefully here. So you can write something like this. gs.log gs.log groups selected are. So we want to print the group selected. So in the log, so I'm using gs.log is the syntax used to log some values into the logs. So I'm logging this value. Right. So click on submit for now. Still this activity needs to be edited. So now join the, so once L1 approval is approved, so I'm triggering L2 approval. So join the output of approved as an input to the approval group. Getting it? So now raise the request again. So groups are selected here. Click on order now. Go to RATM. So if you want to check the workflow attached to this RATM record, you have a link here at the bottom called show workflow. Click on this. See here. So this is a workflow which got attached to this RATM. So currently L1 approval is running. So it is triggering approval to the manager. So what I can do on behalf of this user, I can approve this request. I click and click on approve. So there's one more approval pending, that is L2 approval. So we did not complete the script yet here. So now go to the logs, verify. So type logs here in the application navigator. So system log, and then under system log, say all, click on all, right? So what was the text that I have given in the workflow? Approval activity. So this is a text. So copy this text on the message, right? So these are all the log messages. So now I'm trying to search our log message. See here, it is showing me. So group selected R. So you see the sys IDs here. So this is one sys ID, comma, other sys ID, comma, third sys ID. Getting it? So that means I selected 3 groups here on this 3 groups. All the 3 groups sys IDs are showing me here with comma separation. So now I have to use these sys IDs in order to trigger the approval to these groups. Clear up till now? I'm able to read the values, but I have to trigger the approval to those groups. Anybody has any questions? Clear up till now? Still have configuration on the L2 approval? Clear up till now? Alivelu, Mahesh, Prabhakar, Sai Deepika.
Yes.
So how do we send the L2 approval now? So we got the groups and we need to send the approval. So observe carefully here. So either you can dynamically read each sys ID and then trigger the approval, or you can use some array operations to extract each sys ID and then send it for the approval. Any method you can use. So these are the 3 sys IDs, right? So copy them first. Go to scripts background from the application navigator. I know I'm discussing too many things on this script, but you have to learn. So say variable groups is equals to, right? So these are the 3 values that I've got. Now I need to pick up the sys IDs from this variable separately. I have comma separation, so I have to pick out the sysids one by one. So how do I do that? So can use this way. Declare some array variable. Group array is equals to groups dot split. Groups dot split, comma. Groups dot split. That means I am splitting each element with comma separation. See here, with comma separation, what all values I have, I am splitting them one by one. From which variable? Some from this group. Groups dot split. So I'm assigning that particular individual values into the group array variable. Now observe carefully here. So now it will be something like this. So array will be something like this. So within the array, we'll have these values. Comma. Second element will be like this. Comma. Third element will be like this. Okay. So this is how it will be. Now if you want to read the first element, this is called first element, this is called second element, and this is called third element. So if you want to read the first element, so here the variable of 0. So index value 0 is indicating the first element. You pass 1. So the second element. So index value of 1 will be considered here. If you want to read the third element, pass 2 here. Getting it? So now try reading all the elements. So put gs.print. So if you want to print the values, one, I want to print first element. Sorry, first element is 0. Right? Next, print the second. Then print the third. So pass 1, comma 2. So try printing them. See here, you're getting 3 individual sysids here separately. Getting it? You're getting 3 individual values separately. Now dynamically, in case if you want to print without hard coding like this, you have to use looping statements. Okay, you have to use looping statements. So first, so this is an array variable now. It will give me all these elements, individual elements. So right now there are 3 elements within this array. So I can use something like for loop. So if you're already aware of for loops, so you can understand them. If you do not understand, no problem. We'll discuss in the development. Okay. So here, so variable array length is equals to just 5 more minutes dot length. Okay. So this will give me how many elements present in an array. So there are 3 elements, right? So this syntax group array dot length will give me the length of an array. That means 3 elements. So it will give me 3. So I'm storing that value 3 here in this variable. So now variable I equals to 0, I less than array length, I plus plus, then print the element of the array. So now gs.print is used to print the output. Yes, dot print. What do you want to print? Element. So pass this way. Group array name of I. I means initially it will be 0. So for the first element, you'll have the index value is 0. So you're passing it here. So that will be printed. Next value of I will be incremented using this. So I plus 1. That means I will be 2. I will be 1. Next. So 1 less than the length. Condition true. The syntax will be printed. So likewise, all the elements will be printed. Now try this. Try this. I'm commenting all the other lines. Now see here, 3 elements. So we're able to use for loops in order to print the elements of an array individually. Now, same way you have to do it here. Same way you have to do it here in the workflow. So now you got all the elements, all the sys is stored in this particular variable. Split them, push them into array. So variable, same copy the syntax. I'm using a different variable here. So variable group array is equals to v groups dot split v groups dot split. Okay, next. Take this group name as a variable, right? Next. Copy the syntax. So array length is equals to group array dot length, and then for each you're trying to print, instead of printing, use the syntax. So variable answer equals to array. Variable answer equal to array. So instead of printing, you have to push the ID using this syntax. Copy. So instead of ID, you have to pass group array of I. So this will be the syntax format. Update. Now try for an item. Even if you don't understand, no problem. Okay. Take any other user. Test. Select some groups here. Right. Selected some around 5 groups. All these 5 groups should be triggered with the approval. RATM. Click on this. Click on show workflow. So currently L1 approval is running. So this is the manager of the approver, manager of the requested user. Approve. Trigger. Refresh. So again, approval is requested here. What happened? Some problem? L2 approval did not trigger. Some problem? Requested, but it's not showing up here. Go to logs, verify. Go to the workflow. Put dot to string here to convert it into string. Update. Try once again. Try once again. L1 approval trigger to this user. Approve. Right. So now you see approval is triggered to all these groups. So I think 6 groups we selected, right? So all these 6 groups are triggered with the approval. So problem is with the data type here. So we need to convert the data that you're reading into string format. So we add dot to string here. That fixed the issue. So we'll discuss more in the next class. Okay, we'll come back to this. Any questions? Anybody has any questions? Right. Connect on Monday. We'll continue. Thank you.